Okay, so now we're going to get into some basic SQL statements, reiterating or re-emphasizing things that we talked about before to kind of review them and moving a little bit ahead, probably beyond what you would think. The first thing is that we want to look at our database. So we're going to do a select statement. Now remember, a semicolon will stop this from executing at this statement. Otherwise, it just keeps on going, and that's why I can have it on multiple lines here. This is a format that is pretty common and one that I like. What this says is select all the users, select everything from users. Let's execute that. And here we got this information. These are all of the fields. These are the fields, and these are the records from this database users. I'm sorry, from this table users. Now this is my first question, is what database is this from? Well, I know what database it's from, but remember that we're on a server with multiple databases, and we want to make sure that we're accessing the database that we intend to access. So I can put, for example, the name of the database here, dot the table, and execute it. And you see I actually get a different results because those are from a different database. So this is from a My Passwords database. Now again, if I want to do a shortcut here, I can do this use statement. And then when I execute this, it does get it from the e-commerce database. I'm going to stay with the My Password Manager database for a little bit here. So what we've done here is we've said, give me everything from users. Now, when I say everything, I'm not talking about all the records. These are the records or the rows. But when I say everything, I mean all of the fields or the columns. So if I don't want all of those, for example, what if I just want username? I just get the username by putting it up there. What if I want another field? I put a comma and put the next field. Well, what if I want to show the same field twice? That seems a little ridiculous, but I can do that. What if I don't like the name of this field, which is username? I could just say as customer. And now it's titled customer. And if I was copying and pasting or embedding this in another query, that might be useful. So as customer, well, what if I wanted to have, notice that I didn't have quotes, but what if I wanted to have a space in my column name? Not generally a good idea, but if I put it in quotes, that works just fine. So I've limited it by number of columns that I use. What if I want to limit it by the number of results? Well, that comes from a where statement. This isn't going to work. Can you guess why? It says down here that an unknown column, Kurt Clement, in the where clause. So what this is really saying is where the username column is equal to the Kurt Clement column. Well, there is no Kurt Clement column. What I meant to do here is, of course, put that in quotes. And I get the results I wanted. What if I wanted everybody who just started with the letter K? This is wrong. This is even wrong. It's closer. I need the keyword like. Now I get everybody who started with the letter K. What if I wanted everybody who had the letter K in their name? I could just put the parentheses right there. You can see now I'm getting Kurt, Kim, and Michaela. So the where clause will limit the number of rows. The fields up here will limit the number of columns or fields. Well, there is a special case, and that's called null. Now, if I describe this, I can see that none of these are allowed to be null. So I really can't even test that. But I do happen to know of another table that does allow null. In the e-commerce database, I have a user's address table, and it does allow null. Well, that makes sense. The primary key can never be null, but I may not have a street address, and I want to have the address of the person. So what do we do in order to search on those that have null? Since I'm going back to this database, I'm going to just say, let's use the e-commerce based database from here. So what I'm going to say here is select all of the fields from this table where the column or the field province ID, which is a Canadian term, is null. Here I have this one entry, and you can see that province ID is null. Now, what if I wanted to find out all the addresses where it is not null? That's can be somewhat intuitive. And here I've got this address here where province ID is not null. So you can't just put an equal sign after the where for null. It is special, and null is not the same as 0. It's not the same as blank. It is its own thing, and you got to be aware of that. Two more things we're going to cover, and one of them is the limit statement here. Now, you didn't know this, but you were automatically limited from 0 to 1,000. If you had more than a record, you might think you only had 1,000, but the reality is that you were limited. So let's go back up. Let's go back up and look at our users here. How many do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And what I can do is I could say from here, limit, and I only get 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So limit will work like that. I can also say limit me from 1 to 3. And it gives me the first 3, 1, 2, and 3. Of course, this can be anything here. I could say give me 2 to 4, and I'll get different results. Okay, so starting with number 2, give me 4. You got to be aware of how that works. The last thing we're going to cover, sorry to go over that so vaguely. The last thing we're going to cover is nested loops. And the reason is because this becomes so useful down the road. Here we have our statement, select everything from users. Now what I can do here, this is actually the results. And that's actually in a hidden temporary table. And I can actually select from that. So what I've said is once you get these results, select everything from it. I have to have this alias here as A, otherwise it won't work. It's just like the alias we had for username as customer. But now we're just saying as A. When we execute that, I get the exact same results. But look what happens when I limit my inner query. Now I'm limited to what happened on the inner query because I selected all. Well, what happens here if I just say give me the username? I just get the username even though this is returning everything. Well, what here if I have the username as customer? It fails because this returns a field of customer and we don't know anything about customer. So we change this to customer. And I say, give me all the customers from this. And here we go. So that's just a quick introduction into these inner loops, which become very, very useful later on. That's enough for this video for now. It's gotten some very basic information. We'll start putting together something called a join, where we can actually put two tables together. For example, if I say here I could, if I put these together, you can see that from this user address table, I have city ID. And if I look at city, I can see that number 1 is Long Beach. Well, what if I want to put those two together? And that's what we'll do in the next video.